Okay, so welcome to the gathering. We're going to talk about the heart today, Heartmath, technology in service of spirit. This is one of the favorite talks I love to give because it gives me a way to put together a couple of my loves and to find a way in which, all this crazy tech we have today can be used in a way that supports our spirituality and doesn't just facilitate it. So, let's begin. So if we all want to take a moment to meditate on this. Your heart knows the way. Run in that direction. Run in that direction. You'll see other quotes by Rumi tonight because Rumi is, well, we all know Rumi. And Rumi is the beloved. Rumi comes from the heart. Rumi lives in the heart. So I'd like to start this presentation with a quote and a couple of quotes, but this is an interesting one. Your time is limited, so don't waste it. Don't be trapped by dogma. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. Okay, by a show of hands, not the technology ones, but just raising them on screen, who knows who said that? How many people know who said that? Not seeing too many hands, okay. Well, it was somebody we all know and love, Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, like, Mr. Tech, Mr. Technology. So even he knows, and even he knew about the importance of the heart. Because the very center of your heart is where life begins, the most beautiful place on earth. So this is where we're starting here tonight. And keep the heart in the back of your mind as I go through the presentation, because even though there's going to be some tech we're talking about and some science too, it's a way of understanding that this is the beginning of where that information arises from. And now from the Western world, we've come to be able to almost validate it, almost confirm it in the technology, and then find ways to have it feed back to actually enlarge our hearts. So our heart deals with feeling, emotions. We feel things with our heart, but our head deals with the mind, where technology comes from. And how do these come together? A quiet mind without an open heart is pretty brittle and a boring proposition, but an open heart that doesn't have the support of a quiet and tamed mind is equally unhelpful. Elizabeth Lesser, she was one of the founders of the Omega Institute up here near where I live, written in the Seeker's Guide. So how do we move from our head to our heart without losing the power of each? Sometimes we think we really need to bring it all down here and to only come from the heart space, but we need to make sense of the world and somehow be able to incorporate that in the world. So we need both. We need both. Another way of phrasing that is to say, how do we use technology in service of spirit? And the Heartmath people came up with a way. Now, I should say up front, you know how they have those little disclaimers, I don't work for Heartmath, I don't get paid or any kickbacks or any of that. It's just that I found it such a useful tool in both my technological world and my clinical world and in my spiritual world. So first off, Heartmath is biofeedback. Some may know what biofeedback is, some may not, so I'm going to spend a little time talking about that. So biofeedback is when we can become aware of a biological signal. That's the bio part. Something that we're typically unaware of, like what our heart rate is in this moment. How much muscle tension does the frontalis muscle carry right now? And linking or feeding it back, there's the feedback part, feeding back this biological signal via some analog of that signal or some surrogate of that signal that we can become aware of. So we can do sound or light, for example. Um, High muscle tension is usually reflected in this frontalis muscle up here. And if I put some sensors that are now connecting the muscle activity with a tone, for instance, then high muscle activity can give me a high tone, and low muscle activity can bring the tone down. And so by lowering or raising the tone, we can change the muscle tension in this frontalis muscle. And that's one of the muscles that reflects how much stress we're under or when we're really tense. So it's a great signal that we can lower the tone and lower our muscle tension and lower our stress. So it's feeding back of this biological signal that gives us sort of information about something we would like to have information about. Now, in Heartmath, the biological signal is a little different. Okay, the biosignal is heart rate variability. And that's the variation in beat to beat timing. And I'll talk and show you a little bit more in detail what that is. But generally, the greater the variability, the healthier the physiological state. To a point, of course, too much variability. And then we have things like atrial fibrillation and the heart's beating and it's not connecting with the pump ventricles, which are trying to pump the blood. So there are ways we can sort of exceed where we'd like to be, that sweet spot. But in the sweet spot, the greater the variability, the healthier we are. And the better that physiological state is, the better we feel. Okay. And it goes both ways. So we can learn how to increase our heart rate variability and thereby increasing our both physiological health and our feeling, how we feel. So this is really cool. And this is a great way to understand what heart rate variability is. And in fact, so many of our, um, you know, uh, bio trackers, Fitbits and the Oura Ring that monitors sleep. A lot of our devices use heart rate variability to give us a sense of whether it's relaxation we're looking at or the ability to fall asleep. And it uses this heart rate variability, which is actually measuring the beat to beat change in heart rate. So when we have a heart rate of, let's say, 72, okay, that would be here on this graph, 72 beats per minute. It's not exactly 72 beats per minute the exact same time. It varies over time. And the average of all these different beats, so here's one that's about 62 and 65, maybe 70. This one goes up to 78. We go as high as 90 and as low as 50 here. Okay. And over a certain period of time, the nurse takes your pulse over 15 seconds and then calculates it out for a minute, or we take it for a minute and get a sense of what that rhythm is. But the beat to beat variability, so here's one beat, here's another beat, a third, a fourth, a fifth, and you can see the distance between these beats or the time duration slows down here and actually gets longer here, much longer here, in order to drop the heart rate right down to 50. And then it actually can get a little faster. But over this period of time, in this particular 20, 25-second period, that heart rhythm would come out as a pulse of 72. But the heart rate variability would be much greater than that number. 72 would lead you to believe. Okay, is everybody clear on that? I can't really see everybody's pictures, but if you use the raised hand feature at any point, I can pause and take a look. So how are we feeding back this HRV, this heart rate variability in HeartMath? So I'm going to bring one more term online, and that is coherence. Now you may have heard that term in other areas of study. But coherence essentially means things are sort of beating together or moving together in some way. And in this particular use, what we want to do is align all of our physiological systems. So the cardiovascular, our nervous system, hormones, immune systems, we like to get those all in coherence, because when they do, all the systems begin to synchronize and work more efficiently. So we don't want our heart going really fast while our immune system is really sluggish, or vice versa, or our nervous system when we're really anxious and our heart's not following along. We want to bring all the pieces together. And so when we can get physiologically synchronized or coherent, then we get into a very high functioning state, not unlike the flow state. Flow state, which was first described by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Okay, if you need a little mnemonic to get you to pronounce his name, it's a very difficult name, but this really helps. He wrote a book back in 1990, I believe, on the flow state. And so this is kind of a doorway to the flow state, bringing all of our systems into coherence. This coherence balances the oscillation between the sympathetic nervous system, right, our fight or flight, or what creates stress in our lives, and our parasympathetic, or our relaxation systems. And they're always trying to be in balance, but usually, particularly when the world is activated, we become more in the sympathetic. We're more activated, and if we keep that on all the time, that can lead to all kinds of negative states and not negative health situations. Okay, so we really want to bring these in balance. And at times, we like to actually push the parasympathetic a little bit more. And that essentially turns off the stress response. And we can shift out of that sympathetic into the parasympathetic, which coherence does. Then we become much more relaxed, and we approach this flow state when we have sort of all hands on deck, ready to do what needs to be done, and we get into this really nice state. If we're looking at the brain activity, there's a centering of it in this alpha state. So you've heard of alpha rhythms, that they're seen when we're in meditation, when the mind is quiet and ready to do anything or to not do anything. So it's in that in-between state. It's in a balanced, ready for action. So this is the physiological state of well-being, feeling safe and secure, connected to ourselves, to our community, our world, and beyond. And what does this state remind you of? What does it feel like? What is it akin to? It's when we connect with spirit, nature, the ineffable. Okay, so here's a way we can get feedback about that state. Our emotions are reflected in our heart rhythm patterns. So this is one of the tools we use to shift into this coherent state. And here's an example of someone who's very frustrated, monitoring their heart rate over a period of time. And it's not only that this heart rate varies, but it's varying both in amplitude, in number of beats, and it's also varying. There's quite a bit of variability, way too much variability for any kind of rhythmic action happening. So there are big beats, there are little beats, there are tiny beats, there are half a beat, one's happening fast, one's happening slow. But when we bring ourselves into gratitude, or we're in appreciation, or we're really allowing ourselves to be grateful for what we have, who we are, where we are, who we're with, we see this change into a nice rhythmic heart rate and heart rate variability. You can tell that the variability here is much reduced, but there's still variability happening. So it's not directly related to how high or how low our heart rate is at any given time, but how rhythmic it is. How rhythmic it is. When we're in that frustrated, angry state, we're inhibiting our brain activity. We feel confused, our brain's in chaos, we can't quite make decisions, we can't see clearly. And anyone who's been angry, and I know every one of us has been angry at some point or other, um, it gets hard to see clearly. It gets hard to think. It gets hard to plan. It gets hard to do the next right thing if we can do any right thing. But in heart rate coherence and rhythm, we then facilitate cortical action. Our brain activity shifts into that nice alpha state. We're in coherence, we're in flow, we're efficiently functioning. And this way that I'm going to show you shortly, so that we get a chance to practice and actually do something about heart rate variability, um, is the quick coherence technique. So this brings all rhythms into balance, especially once it's well practiced. And those of you who've used Heartmath in the past um, may have practiced this, may have tried this. And so we're going to count on you to help the rest of the group, because this experience and this ability to create coherence and to bring our heart rate variability into a physiological state that's leaning towards the parasympathetic activation actually expands beyond ourselves. And I used to say it was great when we do it in a room. I would do this for our interspiritual counseling program, and we'd all be in the room and we'd change the state of someone else in the room. And there are some experiments that have been done, and I'll tell you a little bit about those too. But this goes even beyond the next couple of feet. Okay, we expand this ability energetically around the world. There's a global coherence experiment that's been ongoing with the heart rate people, the heart math people, and there's some pretty remarkable findings there as well. So at any rate, here's someone who's just running along, not really thinking much, not doing much, and you can see there's really tight variability here, and then it spreads out. Pulse transit time is just another way of measuring how fast the blood is flowing from one area to another. And again, that's very irregular. Here's somebody who's breathing pretty rapidly and with great breaths, and then smaller breaths, and everything's in very variable in almost a chaotic state. And then calling on this quick coherent technique right about here, all of these variables come into rhythm. Okay. And so that's when that physiological state then changes you into a feeling tone of being centered in that flow state where sort of time begins to drop away. When you have a numinous experience, when you're connecting with the divine, when you're in prayer, um, this is what these measures would look like if I had measures on you during those states. And they look at a variety of ways of measuring this. And essentially, if you calculate how this is happening before doing the coherence and then after it, you can see that everything finds a very similar, if not identical, frequency. So the respiratory rate, the pulse transit time, and the heart rate variability all comes into synchrony, into coherence. So I'm only going to present because this is a feeling talk, not a scientific talk about all kinds of data, but I do want to present this one experiment of in the field. So they've done this in a couple of different ways. One way they did it was at a card table, and they would have three Confederates who knew how to get into this coherent state, who could do the quick coherence technique really quickly. And they would have a fourth person who would sit at the card table with them, and they were actually playing cards. Okay, so these people were pretty good. They could actually get themselves into a nice state. And I know people ask me about, do you win more when you're in that state? And probably do, but that's not the point of this experiment. Okay, so The three Confederates are doing the quick coherence technique. And this gentleman sits down at the table to join them to play. And he also has on a device, a Heartmath device, by the way, which those of you who have it kind of know what it looks like. I usually carry mine in my pocket. So they are pretty handy because you can do it anywhere you have an iPhone. And now the announcement actually just came out today that they have one for the droids, which forever they were, I don't know why they couldn't get it together, but they didn't have any for the droids. So this is a particular end that goes into my iPhone. And when I put it in my iPhone, I've already downloaded a free program that's called Inner Balance, and then it asks me to start the program. And so this Inner Balance program, which is free on the Heartmath site, so you can download it. And again, now for Androids, you can just start the system. And what it's doing is it's measuring my pulse from my ear. Okay. And now those of you that have, who are cold-blooded or get colds really fast, you need to make sure your earlobe is warm. So you can't come in off the street, especially during the winter, and then just stick it on. You want to make sure it's warm so it can pick up a signal. And so now it is picking up a signal. You can see it running across the top. And this little multicolored ring will go in when you exhale, and when you inhale, it expands. So it kind of gives you something to do, or you can do it on your own. And as it happens, you get into this rhythm, and it'll give you a sound feedback, or you can watch the screen, or you can just put it down and allow yourself to do your prayer or get into your state in however you do it, okay? In anticipation of doing this technique for the group, those of you that have one, with you, go ahead and put it on now, because I want you to know, and I don't want you to do any quick coherence technique, and I don't want you to do anything special, no praying right now, okay? We'll get to that. But I would like you to be listening to my presentation, because you'll notice you're going to get one of those not all that coherent while you're paying attention maybe to a presentation, okay? And yes, there are new devices that run on Bluetooth. I've had one of those for a while too, but the real key is there haven't been any for the portable ones for Androids, and so that now means the rest of the world can join. Okay, so the three of these folks have their ears hooked up, and they're doing their Heartmath, and this guy has his ear hooked up, and he's the only one who's not doing any particular coherence technique. And so as they're doing it, they have predetermined when they were going to begin. And then once they began doing it, this guy comes into coherence. He's not doing any particular technique. He hasn't even heard of the quick coherence technique yet. He's just been told, hey, put this on your ear and we're going to see if we can get this thing to work for you while we're playing cards. And he comes into coherence. Now you might say, well, okay, yeah, the heart has a huge electrical signal. It does travel a few feet from the body. Maybe they're somehow interacting with his bioenergetic field, and maybe that is true. But they've now done this in rooms on different floors of the same building. They've done it in different buildings. And now there's data to show that across the world, not that people are being told just to put it on and see what happens, but rather when everyone becomes coherent at the same time, there seem to be changes that are measurable in others who aren't doing it. Pretty remarkable stuff. So let's go to the quick coherence technique. Now, I want to be able to see everybody here. And let's see if I can get everybody on here. Okay. Okay, I think I have everybody on. Okay. So let me get this over here. And those of you who have your, I don't see many ear clips on. You guys have anybody? There's one. Okay. Thank you. You've got one. Anybody else have one on? I thought a few people had some. No? Okay. All right, Carolina, it's going to be me and you. But though, oh, there we go. Michael's got his on. Michael, weren't you were at one of our lunchtime companions? Yeah, great. Okay. So he can vouch for what happens when we all get into this synchrony, in case you guys are a little slow tonight. So he'll vouch for what actually happens. But what we're going to try to do is do this quick coherence technique and watch how, so you guys who have them can see on your own screens, and the rest of you are just going to notice. So whatever you're doing in this moment, I'd like you to pause, okay? And I'm going to actually, I'm going to pull this up on another screen so I can give you the instructions, okay? So you can get comfortable, and you can either close your eyes or gaze softly with your eyes open, whatever you're most comfortable doing. And so slow down and deepen the breath. So you want to notice your breath in and your breath out. Breathing in and breathing out. And that's always a nice way to prepare for meditation, for praying, for being with someone. But now I want you to go a little further. And as you're noticing your breath deepening and slowing, I want you to bring your attention to the center of your chest, really where your heart chakra is, where your heart center is. Okay, we don't have to worry about what's beating over there, but just in the center, we'll get that too. Sometimes it helps to put your hand there or both hands or just your attention to your heart space, your heart chakra. And imagine as you're breathing in, your heart expands. And as you are exhaling, your heart releases. It expands and it releases. And as you inhale and breathe in all the beautiful energy of the world around you, you exhale love from your heart into the world. You're breathing in and exhaling love into the world. Your caring, your compassion, your loving kindness. This is like all of those rolled into one. Just notice how that feeling feels. We're starting with ourselves and we're connecting to the world. And now, in this beautiful state of communion with the world, bring to mind a time when you felt really good about something. Something you really appreciated happening in your life, whether it was receiving a gift, giving a gift, doing something nice for someone, someone holding the door for you when your hands were full of groceries, all the kindnesses that we've been able to show, particularly in this time, this difficult time of COVID and uncertainty, checking on a neighbor, having a neighbor check on you, do a little something extra just because you could. Feeling gratitude, feeling an appreciation of being alive in this moment. In this moment. So many people have lost their lives in this past year. We've all been touched. Yet here we are, being alive can shed love to those who need it in any moment. And those give thanks even for this moment of calm and peace in a wild and crazy world. And gently, gently, gently bring yourself back to this space so we can take a moment to share. So let's see how I can do this. There we go. I think. Let's pull up the next slide, but what I'm trying to do here is participants, there you are. Okay, so those of you who have the Heartmath device using it, would you come on first and share your experience? Let's see. There we go.
Hi. Thanks.
So-
we were in an unmuting fight,
Okay.
which lowered my coherence, by the way. No, kidding.
Yeah. Well, what happened during it? That's what I went first.
I have a relatively easy time keeping everything green in the green zone.
Okay.
I don't know what that means about me, but that I've had the same reaction. I was able to keep everything mostly green.
Okay.
I suppose is that coherence?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. So there are actually 4 levels of coherence. And so the first level is kind of wide and kind of, it takes kind of anything and says, okay, yeah, that's close enough, and we'll give you green. Okay. But because you want to be encouraged, it's feedback that, okay, when I feel a little better than I was just feeling, I'm in the green. Okay, I associate that. Now, when I want to go deeper, I go to level 2. And level 2 makes remember that little peak of the frequency of everything coming in the right spot? So level 1's about out here, level 2's here, level 3's there, and level 4 is like Dalai Lama, okay.
It did get blue a little bit.
Yeah. And one thing is getting into that state and noticing how you feel. And then when you pop out, notice what happened. Did some thoughts come in? Did some feeling change? Did you,
right.
begin to notice the change in feeling? Okay. So that's one way to use the feedback, and to help you. Also, if you think you're really deep, doing some meditation and your mind is like doing all kinds of things, it will definitely let you know you're not in that coherent state. So if you're always in the green, they usually say 80% of the time, then you're ready for level 2.
What is level 2?
Well, it'll be a choice in that you go to session and you can change the settings of the session to level 2.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay. And then you'll
I did
see,
not know that.
you now know something new.
I learned something.
Okay, good. So when you, as soon as you get off the call tonight, you're going to put it on level 2 and see what happens.
Great. Thanks.
Sure. Who is next? Scott, I think, and then Carolina. Carolina, is it? You're muted still. Yeah, let's do Carolina because she has a device too. Unless, do you have the device, Scott? No, I don't think he does. Okay, so Carolina first, and then Scott.
Hello.
Hey.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about this, the levels and everything, because I'm still learning the app. Yeah, I'm enjoying the device. It's just the clip and the clip to the ear. Doesn't plug in to the phone. It's just the Bluetooth. What I really enjoy that I can see. I literally could see how did I get into the blue color, less coherence. I know what I was thinking about, and it was interesting because I would usually excuse people and things in my life like, no, they they mean well, but if I'm thinking about someone who's causing me anxiety, it's clear on the app that, oh wow, look, I kind of lost the coherence that's in the green color because I was thinking about this upcoming session with a person, and yeah.
Yeah, it jumps
It's
out.
yeah, so I love the visual, and I appreciated the guidance. I'm curious what else to do, and I'm actually curious about the training to be a Heartmath mentor. I already talked to like the woman that's at the Heartmath Institute that's been there forever. That's like the main representative.
Yeah, Carol,
But
is it Carol Thompson or Sarah Childre or
Sarah, I
Sarah.
think.
Yeah,
But in any case, I feel like that's great help to actually kind of see your meditation, see your state of being.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
very, very helpful. So I'm
Great.
just curious about more. Thanks.
Sure. And so just so you guys know, if you're doing the phone one, then up here there's a little settings tab, and you can go into the session, and you can then change the challenge level, which is on the bottom of that page, and whatever the star is in right now, the star is in challenge level 1. You can just click on the star level here and get challenge level 2. Or challenge level 2. Now there are 2 stars. And so that'd be good to do because you might try it for this next one and see what happens. The next
Yes,
practice.
and not that you have to answer right now, but I am curious about the other app, which is the global coherence, where we can see each other, people meditating with the app at the same time. And so that one
Yeah,
is
that's cool too.
attractive.
I like the idea of starting, especially people who are just starting out, is to get your levels moving so you really know, like you just experienced when you start thinking about somebody else you might get a little anxious about. Oh, all of a sudden you pop out, you go into the red. Red means, by the way, you're out of coherence. And so you want to get good at what that feels like. So when you then communicating with the rest of the world with the global coherence, you're staying in that higher level. And you want to be, the more you can get up to the higher levels, the more you'll be offering the world in some respects. So thank you for sharing. Scott, can we go to Scott?
Okay. This is what happens when you totally lose it in terms of you're gone. And then you wake up and somebody says, oh, you should wave your hand. And so I wave my hand to say, oh, hi, okay, I'm supposed to wave my hand. So sorry about that, but it's what happens.
Well, I like the experience. So the experience you had was you went really deep.
And I haven't gone very deep in a long time, and I actually need it.
Okay.
So that's great. It is for me. So I will be checking out the. I've got a iPhone, so I'll be checking out. I think you said In Balance or something. You said
Inner balance. Yeah.
Inner Balance. So I'll be checking out the website on my
The
phone.
website's Heartmath. The website's Heartmath, but Inner
Okay.
Balance is the app in the App
Yeah.
Store.
Okay.
Yeah, for the phone.
So I'll be checking that out.
Yeah. I was going to say something about that. And anyone else have comments or any experiences they want to share before we move on? Anyone waving your hands, even if you don't know why? Thank you, Scott. Okay, so the different levels are important to first. One, you want to be able to get into. There's a green, a blue, and a red means you're not in coherence. Blue means you're pretty well, you're like more than halfway there. Green means you're in coherence for that level. Okay, so you want to be able to get into it. But what you'll quickly notice, just like in meditation, and just like Carolina mentioned, when your thoughts begin to shift or drift, or you go to some feeling that isn't as good as it just was, it will change. The color will change. And if you're not watching it, if you're listening to tones, the tone is different for green, blue, and there's no tone for red. So you hear, and you don't even have to watch, so you can really notice your states, and you just start drifting off, and boom, you come right back. So it helps you, it gives you that feedback about what your state is, and then you can notice what you were feeling like. Oh, I was feeling good. I wasn't feeling so good. Oh, that's subtle. That's really different. Okay. So this is the way it can happen and provide you with that feedback. I want to get the second technique before we close, but I'll say one more thing about what we did in the classroom. What we would do is we'd put somebody at the front of the room, and we'd have her coherence signals up on the screen, you know, like in the Zoom rooms and in classrooms, right? So we'd have them up on the screen, and the person would be wearing headphones, so they couldn't hear what was going on in the room. And I'd have everybody do one of two things. Everybody would first, you know, like get real, like, yeah, you know, like kind of, yeah, you know, just grouchy, irritable, cranky, you know, like, you know, I don't want to be doing this. This is a pain. Start thinking about the homework you haven't handed in yet, or whatever it is. And you would see, you know, she'd have this rhythm that was just not doing much. And then I'd have everyone do the quick coherence technique, and you'd watch the screen change. We would do the quick coherence technique and send love to the person sitting in the front of the room who couldn't see us or hear us. And her chaotic rhythm would become rhythmic. And we'd all see it. It was really cool. Michael, you were there, or at least for one of them. He can confirm. You're shaking your head. You don't have to come on, and I won't hold you to it. You don't have to sign any documents. But go ahead. See if could you get it into level 2 on the phone? See if you can get into level 2. We're going to do the second technique. Okay, the second technique is the shamanic decoupling technique. Okay, so I wanted to bring in something shamanic from another world in which we can do this. Again, any practice that gets you into a deeper state will work with this. But it's really interesting when you find out that, oh, I thought I was there the whole time, but I kept popping out. And so the first thing you want to be able to do is get into the state. The second is to be able to maintain it. How long can you maintain this state? And again, this is good feedback for that ability. And the longer you can do it, the more you derive benefit from being in that parasympathetic, coherent flow state. Okay. You guys still seeing this? Yeah, let's see if I can get this up here. Okay. Oh. Okay, so let's again close our eyes or gaze softly down, take a breath or two. And while you're slowing the breath down and noticing as you did before, place your left hand on your heart chakra. Feel your heart rate, feel that heartbeat. You'll feel it in the center of your chest just as well as you will over your heart. So just place your hand there and notice your heart beating in whatever way you can feel that right now. Notice whatever the heart rate is doing. Notice, if you can, that it begins to slow down as your breathing does. Now, in your mind, feel your awareness travel down through the chair you're in, through the floor, through the building, into the ground. The ground below the building, whatever building you're in, down into the earth. Down, down, down past the roots of the great trees, the underground streams. Down, 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 deep into the core of the earth. And see if you can notice there's a rhythm. Mother Earth has her own rhythm, usually slower than ours. And however you can imagine, and if you don't know it, know that it's a bit slower than ours. And in fact, it's been measured at roughly the rhythm of alpha. And just notice her rhythm and yours coming into synchrony together. She helps pull you towards her. Your heart feels the great rhythm surrounding you and slows itself to that rhythm. And when you can feel that there's some synchrony there, place your right hand on your second chakra, just below the belly button, a couple of finger widths below. And first notice if you can feel any pulse coming up through your abdomen. It may feel different in your right hand, that's over the sacral chakra, than in your left hand, which is tuned to the earth. Or if anything, just notice if there's a difference. And after you find whatever rhythm you can find in your right hand, over your sacral chakra, whatever that rhythm is, bring it into tune, bring it into synchrony with your left hand's heart rhythm that's tuned to Mother Earth. Feel them both begin to beat in synchrony. Your left hand's rhythm and your right hand feels same rhythm. Just noticing if that second chakra begins to slow down and come into synchrony with the heart chakra. Feel them beat together. Take another couple minutes, noticing what you're noticing. Are they coming into rhythm and then maybe slipping out a little bit? And then see if you can bring it back in. Mother Earth is huge, huge, huge. And she can hold that rhythm and feed you a big signal that you can come into synchrony with. And then slowly, slowly allow your hands to slide together into prayer position, feeling both, holding the gratitude of the experience of the mother. And rejoin us here in this space. And we'll take a couple of questions in the few minutes we have left. And while we're waiting for whatever, I guess David can see anybody waving. So just wave if you want to say anything. Describe your experience. The shamanic technique is one we use to de-stress people when they come in sometimes. Sometimes they come in and that's all you can do because they're so out of sync and so anxious. And doing that, so we do it with both of our hands, helping their hands bring these into synchrony. The second chakra is the one associated with the adrenals, the fight or flight response, the cortisol release, the stuff most of us have going on 24/7 in today's world. And so by bringing the heart in tune with the earth and then connecting that to this fight or flight chakra, we can slow that down and reset it. It's a resetting. It's a turning off the fight or flight, moving into the relaxation response and allowing you to breathe more freely and to come into that same coherence. So was anybody, did anyone, oh, Michael raised his hand. David, can you, okay, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So I just want to understand the levels a little bit. So the first time I was above, I was 81% on the first level. And then the second level, I was 65% coherence. And a little bit like 28% in the middle. What are the levels? Is it just a sensitivity? How does it work?
Yeah. How can I? So remember this. So this is what the HRV looks like, even a finer line. Everything's in this fine frequency, very narrow band when you're at level 4 and you're in green. Okay. Everything widens. So this becomes a wider peak. You're not in this perfect frequency to some extent, which is about 1.2 or so, 1.25. Your band becomes extended from 0.1 to 1.5, 0.15. Okay, so it's a bigger band. So you're not in as refined a state in which your everything is in, let's call it perfect synchrony. Nothing's perfect. Okay. And then each level, so level 3 gives you a wider band in which it's going to give you green, Level 2 is going to use a wider band. If you just get into that kind of coherence, it'll let you be in green. And then finally, level 1 gives you a really wide berth. So you can be really almost, barely in, you could be from here to here having peaks and still be considered in synchrony, in green. Now, the blue just means you're like most of the way there, you're 60 to 70% there, okay? But you're still in some coherence, but you're not in the full for that level, okay? And so there's blue, green, and red for each of the levels, okay? So they're just increasingly refining your ability to be, like there, like the happiness monk, what was his name? Mathieu Ricard, okay? They played a horn blaring while we were watching his brain activity, and he was in loving compassion meditation. And you're watching his EEG doing this, the horn blares, everybody jumps, it doesn't change. It doesn't change. So that's what level 4, being in that perfect green, that's where you need to be for that. So don't feel frustrated, but it's a way to grow your awareness of your internal state. It's a way to grow that, okay? Any other questions? So I will take you to the last slide, which is one of my favorites too. All the same, said the scarecrow, I shall ask for brains instead of a heart, for a fool would not know what to do with a heart if he had one. I shall take the heart, returned the Tin Man, for brains do not make one happy, and happiness is the best thing in the world. From The Wizard of Oz. So thank you for experiencing with me tonight. You could probably find me Revet at One Spirit anytime if you want more questions. I'm happy to talk about it. I didn't really want to get too much into the tech tonight, but it's a great tool. Now they do cost some money, $100, $150, $125, but they're a worthwhile tool to really, if you want to grow your meditation practice, if you want to grow. And the nice thing about it is, you stick it in your pocket, you connect it to your phone, or you get the Bluetooth one. You don't have to stick it into anything. You just basically clip it to your ear. And this clips actually to your shirt, and you're off and running. So it goes with you. And so that's really nice. That's really nice. All right, no further questions. Thank you all. Blessings. Until next time.
Thank you.
Thanks
My
so
pleasure.
much.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, everyone.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Blessing.
Thank you, Ed. Love you.
Hey.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Good
Good
night.
night, all.